Order online at picassospizza.net.
Folks, welcome in. Hope you're having a happy Tuesday, April 7th. Hope you've put in the work. It's time to kick up your feet, and it's time for us to pay the bills. We've got the panel in the house. You know him, you love him. Mike_Bunt on all socials. And we've got Carson Hayek kicking off things in the Southtowns for us, holding down the fort. Boys, it is 16 days till the draft, but it is OTA, voluntary OTAs, day one. We saw, with all due respect to Uncle Joey and Uncle Jesse, relatively a full house at One Bills Drive, Bunty.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. I didn't know if Josh Allen would be there. To be honest with you, having the birth of his kid just recently, I kind of expected him not to be there. And I really wouldn't have cared either way, because I think the birth of a child is way more important than playing football. I know this season's important. I know the expectations are high for this team, but I would have been fine either way. But it's good to know that he's focused on football and looking forward to the upcoming season. So, like I said, surprised, but happy to see him back in Orchard Park.
I don't know about you, but my girlfriend was pointing out, like, apparently they went to a wedding 2 or 3 days ago, Sam Darnold's wedding. I don't know if you guys caught
there
that.
There was a picture. So, I mean.
So now she started conspiracy theorying, like, this baby could be like 2 to 3, maybe even a month old at this point. I'm like, oh my God, did they keep that under wraps for that long? A lot of conspiracy theories, Carson.
Yeah, 100%. Regardless, though, I'm kind of with you, Bunty. It's to me, it's insignificant on whether or not Josh shows up or not to voluntary workouts. At the end of the day, it's voluntary. On the flip side, if he feels comfortable enough, a newborn baby to be out there, then that's great. If not, totally would have understood him staying in, new dad and taking care of the family a little bit. That's also more than reasonable. And I do think it kind of shows a little bit for Josh. Not every team's the same, right? We know this. Free agency comes around. The draft eventually comes around. He still has to get to know new teammates. DJ Moore, there's guys that they've brought in from other places. Other guys, just a new home for them. And also it shows Josh is, of course, the head of the snake. Everybody knows that. But once again, it's him showing up, showing that he's the leader, showing that he's the guy. It runs through him. If you're going to be the guy, be the guy. It's a great opportunity to get to know your new teammates, catch up with maybe some of the guys you haven't talked to in a minute, and ultimately build a little bit of chemistry while you're at it. So it's great to see. Really can't complain, especially with, Joe Brady now the head coach. Bills get 2 weeks, I believe, before everybody else does for these voluntary workouts, so you might as well take advantage of it.
And I don't think I'm making like a revolutionary point here, but I think that makes it all the more important for Josh Allen to be in the house for Joe Brady's kind of first team activity as the NFL head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So obviously good to get QB1 in the building. We saw, Buffalo Joe. We saw a lot of usual suspects in the house. One name that a lot of people weren't surprised to see, and they kind of led the media with him, with the Bills media, with him walking in the snow, DJ Moore present. So it seems like the full arsenal was ready to get on board in the new administration, Bunty. Nobody's wasting time in this Joe Brady era to kind of maybe a little house of cards shuffle. Roster spots and depth spots are open at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And DJ Moore, he's going to be the offensive star on this team moving forward. Obviously, you have James Cook, and you know what he brings to the table, and you have guys like Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid, who obviously have impressive upside. But DJ Moore is the guy right now. The Bills gave up a second-round pick for him. He's getting paid close to $25 million a year. He has a track record in Carolina, in Chicago, and he's going to get a lot of targets, and he needs to build rapport with Josh right away this offseason. So I guess if you're a Bills fan, you should be excited that the two guys are going to be able to get to work right away this April, and hopefully by the time training camp comes around, they're feeling good and they're really starting to get into a rhythm heading into the preseason and in August. So excited to have DJ Moore here. I know it's weird because I remember when the trade happened, I was psyched for it, and I still am. But normally of like a move of this magnitude, the fan bases would be thrilled. They would be they'd be jumping through hula hoops. They would be celebrating. And maybe it goes to the point to where we have been kind of so spoiled as a fan base with offensive success and talent that a guy like DJ Moore doesn't really excite a bunch of Bills Mafia right now, when 6-7 years ago, did not say that intentionally, I believe DJ Moore would have been considered a massive get for this franchise.
Yeah, we're sorry, Carson. We're a long way away from the era of John Brown and Cole Beasley being the blockbuster acquisitions. That's for sure, Carson.
Yeah, 100%. I think also, as far as the fan base is concerned and the hype level, I think a lot of it has to do with how Joe Brady does call his offense. And we've seen over the past few years, whether that's because they don't have a traditional number one wide receiver or whether or not Joe Brady likes it that way. Hey, we're going to run the ball 52% of the time, and we're going to have an offense where everybody can contribute, whether that's our wide receiver 4 or whether that's Khalil Shakir, who's maybe our wide receiver 1. We're going to give you a ton of target volume in the tight end game, whether that's Kincaid, Knox even makes his money a little bit through that receiving game, the running backs. I know a lot of people would have loved to see James Cook get the ball a little bit more, especially through that middle stretch of the year where at times maybe the Bills did struggle a little bit, but we've seen it time and time before. And I think if, maybe Ken Dorsey was the guy where volume was everything as far as Stephon Diggs, the wide receiver 1 situation, that's where we really saw the wide receiver run and the offense really explode. I don't think DJ Moore is the caliber that Stephon Diggs was when he came into Buffalo. But yeah, DJ Moore is an excellent pickup. And one quick point, I did see there was a report out there that it was an anonymous NFL executive that said, hey, DJ Moore is going to get cut and the Bills gave up a second-round pick. Everybody, I think, at least what I saw from the comments, totally agreed. Like, DJ Moore is, regardless of how much money he makes, he's the caliber of player that you don't cut. One way or another, the Bills give up a second. DJ Moore is going to be out of Chicago. And I just kind of think that report is, I think that's a very inaccurate. Whether or not the executive said that, I think it's a different story. But regardless, I think the opinion that DJ Moore is going to get cut from Chicago is kind of a irrelevant one at that. And also, I think one that's definitely skewed. But excited to see DJ Moore in this offense, and hopefully they can Joe Brady and DJ Moore can get some of that success back that they've had back in Carolina a few years ago.
And I have to add something to that too. Like, I know, like, these unnamed executives are
they're the worst.
The stuff they say, like, that was such a stupid comment in so many ways. And like, I get it from a pure value standpoint. You gave up a second-round pick for a 29-year-old aging receiver coming off a down season. Well, you know what that comment like ignores in a lot of ways? The Bills didn't have a better solution on their roster, number one. Number two, the Bills' track record of drafting quality receivers is not that high. Number three, they have not done a great job with their second-round picks in several years. And then number four, it comes down to, if you don't get DJ Moore, who are you getting that is going to be a better option? You're not getting Jalen Waddle because Miami's not trading him in division, so he goes to Denver. Some of the other guys, like Alec Pierce, were getting $30 million a year in free agency. There's other guys,
I still don't see that.
Like Romeo Doubs is getting $20 million in New England, and he's not DJ Moore talent-wise. So, like, I get it. Based on, like, what value you paid and what you're getting back, if DJ Moore ends up being a 50-catch receiver for 650 yards, yeah, it's going to look like an overpay. But DJ Moore also was part of an everyone eats mentality in Chicago, and I know that's what the Bills do, but in Chicago, he had a young second-year quarterback who's very inaccurate, very inconsistent, some very high highs, some very low lows. But when you don't have consistency in your offense and you're getting phased out, not because of a talent perspective, but because you have a top 10 pick receiver from 2 years ago in Rome Odunze, you have a top 10 pick tight end in Loveland, you have a second round pick receiver in Luther Burden the third, and then you still have Cole Kmet, and you have an offensive genius head coach who can scheme things in a variety of different ways, and you're the guy getting paid $25 million a year. There was really not a need for Chicago to prioritize him. And with him out of the picture, it opened up avenues for them to fill other holes. While the Bills, it's kind of the exact opposite. They've lacked a top-end receiver in the last couple years. they don't have it. It's really the only thing they're missing on their offense, if we're being honest with you. And if they were going to spend some extra money, it made sense to get it, use it on a guy that was proven. So an executive trying to simplify things into, well, it's an over like pay and the guy was going to get cut. If he gets cut, the Bills might not get him anyway. He might go somewhere else. So these unnamed execs just spew the dumbest shit in the world, and then we give them like credibility, like, oh, that's supposed to mean something. Like, hell, name me an unnamed exec and I'll say some stupid shit for your publication.
I'm gonna name my firstborn unnamed exec for sure. But I just think back of it, like, didn't we get like, Josh Allen's the most overrated in the league from like the unnamed, NFL voters, and then we got like MVP. I think Buffalo fans love these unnamed stories for sure. Looking forward to those. But I'll tell you what does have a name, and that is the best pizza in Western New York. It's Picasso's Pizza. Call any Picasso's near you and get that delivery, whether it's for a Sabres game night, Bills, draft coming up. Make sure you get those orders in. Go to picassospizza.net for the best deals on the best pizza in Western New York. With that said, before we move on to our selections of some draft talk and things like that, I wanted to throw it back to you guys. I know I didn't put this in the rundown. Who do you think could move the most up in like a Joe? I mean, I guess it would have to be somebody on the offensive side because Joe Brady's an offensive coach. But who can House of Cards their role into like the biggest multiple from McDermott to Joe Brady? Like, do we think it's like a Terrell Shavers? Like, do we think it's, maybe a Ty Johnson, who's always like seeing a lot of success in the Joe Brady system? I'm curious if you guys think that there's anybody year over year at One Bills Drive who, with Joe Brady at the helm, maybe could be looking at a larger role this coming season. I'm curious.
I'll let you go first, Carson.
I thought about saying Ty Johnson on this. I think he's a good option. But the guy who I think I'm going to go with, and I know a lot of fans might not like this, is going to be probably Dawson Knox. I think this year, especially if they don't get a fullback after Gilliam left, which we'll see how this turns out. They did choose Gilliam as a UDFA from, I think he went to Toledo. So that's something I'm really going to keep an eye on, because I thought, the money Gilliam's making in New England, I don't know if the Bills really could have logistically made that out. It's nothing crazy, right? But still, like, we're strapped to the cap. So I'm going to be really interested to see maybe how they choose that. You've had the near the top ranked rushing attack these last two seasons. Your running back room is staying the exact same. You have no worries in that situation at all. They're going to be a team who I don't think is just going to magically want to throw the ball 60% of the time. They're still going to rely heavily on their run game. They have pretty much the whole offensive line coming back with the exception of your left guard. And I think if they do not get a fullback, I expect Jackson Hawes to obviously get in there, absolute beast when it comes to the run game. But I also think Dawson Knox could be in line for possibly a year where I wouldn't be surprised if he has 400, 500 receiving yards. I wouldn't really go anywhere past that. But a type of year where it's like, okay, well, he came back. He just got an extension that helps out with the salary cap. He's one of Josh Allen's best friends. Everything culturally there and socially is there. Now it's up to his usage. If they're going to throw him out there a little bit more now that they don't have Gilliam because they need the extra weight, and maybe they don't necessarily want to throw that extra lineman out there, they can do it with Knox. Knox is year by year has gotten better with his run blocking. That sets you up. That we've seen it time and time again this year in the play action pass where you had a fake guard pull, Knox ran a crossing route behind it, or just out in the flat. Knox can be very, very versatile in the play action game. And I think if they do not replace Gilliam, I think Dawson Knox could be a guy that could possibly get a little bit of an uptick in volume in the receiving game. Worst case scenario, I think you're going to get your 250, 300 yard receiving tight end on the year for Dawson Knox. But I think Knox is going to be a guy who could not necessarily surprise some people, but I think he'd get an uptick in his volume.
So if we're talking offense, I don't know if there's really anybody that's going to suddenly have a magically different role in terms of production. Alec Anderson is like the clear guy in offense, who has the chance to break out and really take a step up. I think Alec Anderson has a chance to win the left guard job. They've been grooming him for a few years now. There's an opening at left guard. I know they brought in some free agents, maybe some guys that can compete for a spot there. But Alec Anderson has been the sixth man. He's had a lot of an impact on the Bills' offensive line. He's filled in at center when Connor McGovern was down. Cedric Van Granger doesn't seem to be holding on as well as what people thought. People thought that maybe he would be the center one day, and instead you're seeing Alec Anderson go in and they're re-signing Connor McGovern. So I think Anderson could be a sneaky good player at left guard after how he's improved over the last few years. And if you're looking defensively, there's a few guys that I'm interested in. Obviously, Maxwell Hairston, if he can have a healthy offseason, he's going to be poised for a big leap this year. And then a sneaky under the name guy might be Joe Andreessen. How will he fit in with this Bills defense? He's a third-year player now. Obviously, he wasn't going to get starting opportunities early on in his career. He was just trying to make teams, but he's been impactful on special teams, and he's still around here. He seems like he's more than just your guy that you just bring in for a feel-good story and move on from. This is kind of the year where, like, if he's going to be more than just a special teamer, maybe you see him on the field a little bit more. And it's not like the linebacker depth is strong on the Bills right now. You have Terrell Bernard, you have Dorian Williams, and then what do you have after that? Does that mean the Bills draft somebody? Maybe. Do they bring back a Shaq Thompson or Matt Milano? Maybe, but those are older vets that you really can't depend on. Maybe there's an avenue for Joe Andreessen to be a little bit more than what he has been.
I was wondering why Buffalo Joe was smiling ear to ear in that picture when he was walking in this morning, for sure. I can definitely see that again. And not to mention name twin with the head coach never hurts. With that said, someone will be calling out someone's name in about 16 days and roughly 3 hours from now. And we'll have potentially a new Buffalo Bill on the roster. So listen, I'm going to go full hand up here, guys. I already talked to you about the only prospect I have my eyes on, and it's Uar Bernard, all right? And he might not even play for a year or two in the NFL. But I know you guys obviously are always looking at retooling this Buffalo Bills roster. I know we were talking wide receiver still a position of need, offensive weapon still a position of need. But I'm curious where you guys are starting to zone in on potentially maybe a top 100 pick or someone early in the NFL draft that you're starting to have your eyes on. Bunty, I know you've been on one guy specifically, but curious if there's been any evolution of the draft desires for our panel here on Pay the Bills podcast.
Yeah, so last week we kind of got the draft talk underway. We discussed what the Bills might need to target, obviously edge, defensive tackle, linebacker, and then potentially receiver. And I mentioned I like Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M. Obviously, he has a lot of speed. He can get behind defenses, explosive player. Right now, I am very open on what direction the Bills can go in this draft. I am not centered in on any single player or position. I like the idea of a Concepcion. I like the idea of a Jordan Tyson, the receiver out of Arizona State. There's a couple other receivers that are pretty intriguing as well. Omar Cooper out of Indiana is a really good guy too. But when you look around in what the mock drafts have right now, it's clear there is no consensus on what the media thinks the Bills draft needs are. Just going through a few of them right now. Obviously, Matt Miller had Omar Cooper. Recently, C.J. Allen, a linebacker out of Georgia, is an intriguing name. He's a guy that could help you out significantly in the linebacker room. Another name you're seeing a bit of is Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. There's some pros and cons to a guy like that. Shorter arms, which is a little bit scary when you're a first-round pick, but he has burst and some speed. And then a name that I really hadn't heard until recently was the safety out of Toledo, Emmanuel McNeil. I'm getting the last name. I'm losing it in my head, but he's a guy that a lot of people have been saying, well, you could improve your safety room for the significant long-term future if you bring a guy like that. I know that the Bills brought in safety help this offseason, but it's not just about right now. It's about 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. So I'll say this. I think the Bills are in a Super Bowl window right now. I like the idea of safety, but I don't love the idea of safety. I need somebody on this team that's going to be a year one starter, year one impact player. And I don't think the Bills have gotten enough of those in the first round over the years. So that's why I'm kind of going receiver here, because we know that DJ Moore is going to be good. But what's the longevity of good? 2 years, 3 years max, maybe, if he's good into his early 30s. Khalil Shakir is your slot guy. He's not going to be a number one outside guy. Keon Coleman is full of questions, and we don't even know if they want him to be on the team beyond this year or beyond this draft. Josh Palmer was a good idea, but he did not work out, whether that was because of talent or injuries, and it's a risk with him.
Are you completely out on the Palmer of it all?
I'm not completely out on Palmer. I expect him to be part of this team. What I'm saying is if you got an option to upgrade from that, I'm in on that, because if you can get a Jordan Tyson, say he drops because of some of the concerns, or a KC Concepcion, you're looking at one of the most dangerous offenses in the NFL. If you have Josh Allen under center and you have James Cook in the backfield, and you pair that with tight ends like Kincaid and Knox, you have DJ Moore who can get open. You add Khalil Shakir. I'm always looking like bigger picture. Like a lot of people, when they're looking at it like a receiver, and this is why I wasn't always against the everyone eats. I just don't think the way they put it together was the best way. If you get a deep threat to pair with Moore, who benefits the most out of that? Khalil Shakir. So, and then James Cook. So, in theory, like people are going to want a first round pick receiver to have like 70 catches and like 900 yards. Like, I don't need that. I just need a guy that can get you 30 to like 50 catches as a rookie, get you 600 to 700 yards, but be that threat to where defenses know when he's on the field for his 40% of the snaps or whatever it is, he can go over the top. And if you put that fear into defenses, they're going to have to play you a certain way, which will then open up other things for you. Now, a lot of people will come back at me, and people that are way smarter than me football-wise, they'll say, Mike, the Bills' defense is going through a massive transition. They have a lot of holes. They need to fix those holes, or they're going to be awful this year. And my response back to those people would be, you're right. They do have a lot of holes. They do have a lot of issues that they need to address, which is why going after receiver makes all the more sense in the world, because you are not one good defensive player away from fixing your problems. How are you going to fix your problems defensively? By getting volume. You're going to, first of all, need to get volume of picks. So you can use, in one way, you could say, oh, that's even more reason to get the first round pick. But you'll need to also draft defense 3rd round, 4th round, and get like free agents. I think the biggest impact for this first round pick, at least year one, will be on the offensive side of the ball. And then use the lower picks to fill out guys that fit the archetypes of what you want defensively. And then use that to adjust, because I don't think the Bills defense September, October is going to be great, in my opinion. I think there's going to be a lot of players out of place. I think they're going to have to do a lot of learning of figuring out what Jim Leonhard wants. And I think it's going to be a year plus rebuild of trying to get what you need. So with that in mind, how are you going to win games if your defense allows 23, 24 points a game? You're going to need to outscore opponents. And you're not going to outscore opponents by doing what you did last year. And I'll end the point by this. People will respond, Mike, the Bills scored 28 points a game last year, right around it. Mike, they scored almost 31 points a game the year before. You can run the ball and still score a lot of points. Correct, you can. When you're running the ball, you're going to play close games, and you're not going to get blown out a lot. But what happened when the Bills' offense struggled last year? They lost some games where they scored like 14 points. where they just couldn't get going. They didn't have answers. And by the time they got it, it was too late. I think the Bills need that one weapon to basically get to the point where there's no justification for ever scoring under 20 points in a game, regardless of who they're playing. And that's why I lean explosive receiver if you can get a Tyson or Concepcion. If those guys are gone, go defense.
And real quick, if they were to go either of those two, Keon Coleman would be on a 48-hour clockish in your mind?
You would have to trade him at that point, because the only thing worse than Keon Coleman the last 2 years is that Keon Coleman going into this year knowing that he's not part of the Bills' plans and that they're not going to prioritize him at all. So, like, it's almost like when the Bills traded for Mike Williams from Tampa. I know that experiment never worked out, but what did they do shortly after? They got rid of Stevie Johnson, because even though the idea of having like 3 good receivers at once is always a nice theory, you only have so many footballs to go around. So if you have a room where you have DJ Moore as your 1, Khalil Shakir as your 2, even though he's your slot guy, and then you have a first-round pick receiver and a Josh Palmer, there's not enough footballs to go around to Keon Coleman. And while it would be nice to be like, well, hopefully he can use this as a redshirt year and be a red zone target, and when he's in, play hard. We already kind of know from past experiences, he does have some maturity standpoint, some maturity concerns. He has skipped practices. That's not going to get better when he knows that they're not going to involve him.
Wait, has he skipped practices? I thought he overslept. I don't want anyone
practice overslept.
I just don't want anyone accusing us of being like, they said this.
I appreciate the correction. You are right. But at the end of the day, like, it would take a giant leap of faith to think that if the Bills added a first-round pick receiver, that Keon would suddenly be inspired to prove the Bills wrong. More likely than not, his agent would probably be going to the Bills and be like, "Get me the hell out of here!" Like,
Agent Paul.
Paul would be on the phone for sure. All right. So speaking on the line, Carson, what do you got in this early mock expectation? Again, I'm going to be easy on you guys. We are 16 days out. I'm looking at AI screen. I go, what are the Bills known for in the draft? And the top AI response is that Brandon Beane's known for his smoke screens in the draft. I'm like, I don't even think he's like that good at them. But Carson, what do you got going on in the draft side? What do you think in 16 days out?
I've been saying this now for a few weeks. I think it's best player available situation. I do think at times in the past, Beane and management have been so infatuated with, is this player a skill fit in comparison to maybe what can they bring at their ceiling. Obviously they hit with Josh Allen, but there's been guys in the past who they've went purely on skill fit. And yeah, that works. That stuff works. It's nice to have a floor and guys who are in the later rounds. But I really do feel, especially when it comes to the first round this year, I'm willing to take a risk on somebody, whether that's maybe a wide receiver like Bunt mentioned, or maybe that's somebody inside, secondary, linebacker, you name it. I mean, pretty much defense right now, you could just pick a position and have somebody that you could be that could be drafted and have some significant playing time. But a guy who I thought you were going to bring up, that's name's starting to circulate a little bit, is Caden McDonald from Ohio State.
I did see that. Yes,
he's Bills have been looking for a legitimate, healthy one tech that's consistent. I think I can't even remember the last time since, I don't know, maybe Kyle Williams, that it's been a guy who's just been an absolute space eater up front. And not only are they a space eater, but they make plays in the run game too, whether that's soaking up blocks or making tackles for loss themselves. I mean, he's a guy known as a run stopper. He's a good fit, even if it might be a little bit of a reach, right? Bills are looking, they need all the help they can get. Let's just phrase it that way in the run game. They finished 31st in rush defense this year. It was disastrous at times. I get there's been some reasons for that when it comes to, the Bills maybe wanted it that way and how they constructed their defense. They love the nickel, lightweight, blah, blah, blah. We've seen it for years. But a guy like McDonald, 65 tackles last year, 9 TFLs, 3 sacks. I mean, it's just a guy who can fit, plug up gaps. He's only going to get better. You're not going to get a ton of pass rush production out of him, but you're not drafting him for that. He's a guy who I think, definitely could grow a little bit, but instantly a guy who could help you in that run defense, an area where they needed all the help they can get last year. It's an area where they're probably going to at times struggle again this year. It's a guy who I really, really think you could plug and play, especially situationally. It does not have to be every single down, but a guy who you're going to get some sort of results from, even if it's not showing up on the box score.
Yeah, I like that. I have a small take from what I've heard from you guys. I don't know if I want to unleash it yet or maybe just save it for the end like an Easter egg. I'm going to save it for the end, even though it might be more timely now. I want to stay on schedule. It's what a good offense has to do. With that said, schedule, I mean, obviously last year there was littered with helmets, new jerseys, everything like that. Unless you've been living under a rock or heavy fortunate of not hitting your algorithm with the Dov Kleiman of it all, the Bills are rumored to have like a new gray jersey. There's like Bussin' with the Boys, which many consider like a quote unquote NFL outlet. Cited that these would be the jerseys allegedly, things like that. Jeremy White of WGR, a friend of the program here at Trainwreck Sports, says that there's no chance they are. So, I'm curious where you guys both land, if this will be the jersey or not, and B, what you think of the actual jersey itself. Why don't we do a little reverse order, Carson? Start with you. You look like you're excited for this one.
I just hope it's not the jersey. I mean, they don't look great from the leaks that we've seen. I'm not a huge fan of gray jerseys to begin with, so maybe this could be a me thing. I've always been a big believer in you have your primary and secondary colors, you rotate that home and away. And then if you're going to do an alternate jersey, it's got to be either some sort of throwback or it's got to be black or white. And just gray is just, I'm not a huge fan of the color to begin with. And I hope it's not the jerseys. If it is, cool. Let's just hope it's better. The better outcome than what we saw on Sunday Night Football against the Patriots when we had, the all whites and the helmets and everything like that, because that was an absolute disaster. So I don't think, I feel like we maybe get a little bit more smoke where there's fire here, and Jeremy White saying it's no good now too. Take that for what you will. But I hope it's not the gray jerseys. If we have gray jerseys, it is what it is. Cool. Add a new jersey. You can't have enough of them, I suppose, these days. But I would love to see maybe a black and red combo, almost like Goat Head, but like Bill's version of that, or something where we keep it white again, or the throwbacks. The throwbacks are phenomenal. I love those. The more the merrier with them.
Yeah, those were some ugly jerseys. So let's pray to God that the grays aren't legitimate. And if there is any legitimacy to it, let's hope that this is one of the rare instances where cyberbullying does have a positive outcome. Because there's no way the Bills can ever go out onto a gridiron wearing those things. You thought the Bills jersey changes in the early 2000s was bad when they went to whatever the dark name, the dueling
the Bledsoes or even worse. Bledsoes, yeah.
If those were bad, these grays are right up there with it. The having the Bills logo where like my Nike is right here, right over the number, that was one of the most like hideous things I've ever seen. And I don't have I normally get excited about new jerseys. Like I like the idea, but here's the thing: you got a new stadium, so it makes sense why they are going to probably come out with something. And I know a lot of people like the white ones. I thought the white ones were okay. Like they're for a specific team. I get it, the rivalry stuff. But when the Bills came out with the red helmets and the blue in the final game of the regular season against the Jets, like that looks sharp. I just remember being like, damn, they look good today. Like the Bills already have something that like they know is amazing. So unless it's like a one-time alternate jersey that they're coming out with, like stick with something that's good. And then your normal jerseys are already elite. Don't ruin it by going to something that's completely like just disgusting. And then the other thing I'll say too, like you can make a nice looking gray jersey. Don't go with the most bland thing that like a 13-year-old graphic designer can come up with. Like show some effort in it. And the thing about it that's kind of funny to me is like you think about the Sabres. The Sabres had the blue and gold for so long, beautiful look. And then they go to the Goat Heads. And at that point in time, there's probably a lot of older people that are like, the Goat Heads are disgusting. They look like a cartoon. It's a disgrace to the Sabres. And now, like, we look back in the Goat Heads and we love them. There's nostalgia. But you know what we don't have any nostalgia for? The Slug. Because the Slug was just a horrible idea. It just made no sense. It was just going too far. And then they go to the navy swords and everything. And then they come out with so many jerseys in a period of time that, like, you just look at that era of Sabres hockey and you're just like, ugh, it's gross.
The Bills, there would. I mean, I'm sorry, there would just be no saving these jerseys. All I can say on this, this is a simple take. Anyone with a brain could have it. The Buffalo Bills have red, white, and blue in their logo. It's 3 outstanding colors. Any of those 3 colors, you can base the entire jersey around and make a great jersey. The need to include gray in that is like, who invited gray? Like, there was no need to invite gray. So. And much less to invite like 50 Shades of Gray with like that jersey for sure. So I think everyone's out on it. Will be interesting to see. There were a lot of leaks, like you guys alluded to, like leaks or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this was potentially in the works, but this gets it nixed for sure. Speaking of in the works, obviously Buffalo Bills fans all offseason want Brandon Beane to be working on blockbuster deals to bring in players and bring in this free agent, bring in this disgruntled guy, etc. Well, we've got a disgruntled guy who's doing more work than ever for any defensive tackle. No other defensive tackle, I think they said, over the last 4 years has more than 35 pressures on the quarterback. Dexter Lawrence has over 100. Still 28 years of age on that New York Giants defense. Carson, I know you wanted to talk a little DL on the DL. Is this in the realm of possibility?
I don't 100% think it's out of the question. I also just don't think it's very likely. At the end of the day, it'd be a great fit. I mean, I just talked about the defensive tackle position and how, the one tech's kind of been a question, but a guy like Lawrence, you can throw him around a little bit. 340-pound guy, one hell of an athlete, just incredible. A guy who you brought up, the sacks maniac. A guy who's 340 pounds shouldn't be getting after the quarterback the way Dexter Lawrence does. He's been healthy for a majority of his career. So the best ability is availability. You can check that box off. He's, a 2-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, 9 sacks 2 years ago, 12 TFLs in the last 2 years. He can check off almost every single box for you. I just don't know logistically how much the Bills would be willing to give up and just, financially, if they're willing to do that. But it's something really, really interesting. I think if you throw a guy like Dexter Lawrence into the lineup, drastically your defense looks different. Just the way and how it's shaped. Not a game wrecker when it comes to, rushing the passer. Obviously, he's great there, but, you don't want your one tackle, your defensive tackle to maybe be doing all that stuff, and with a few exceptions of Aaron Donald and a few guys like that. But instantly, your run defense becomes tenfold better. And I think that's more important at this stage of the game than likely the Bills' pass defense. We saw Cole Bishop have one hell of a year. We saw Max Harrison at times show up. They've invested into Alford in the slot corner position. You hope that you could stay healthy in the back end. You still have some guys right back there. So good depth as well. I'm not all that concerned with the pass defense. I still think there are some things to build on, but run defense is the biggest question mark. And if you can fill it with a guy who's proven, I love Cade McDonald, but the guy hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet. Like that's a guy who you still have there's some risk in that. If you get a guy like Lawrence, that risk is out the window. He's just automatically, 2-time All-Pro. It speaks for itself. The resume speaks for itself, instantly makes your defense better.
Yeah, it's a Micah Parsons, right? Because it's not just him making the impact with his stats. It's all the guys around him getting a little bit better matchups, so on and so forth for certain. Well, we've had a great matchup tonight on Pay the Bills pod, boys. Before we all go down the rabbit hole, any other thing you want to shout out before we sign off here?
No, just that we're going to get things amped up soon for draft season. So excited to start diving into the prospects, and we're going to have a lot more coming out on Pay the Bills in the near future. And I can't wait to get to the nitty gritty of this, because without the second round pick, whoever they select at 26 is going to be a huge player in their future. And hopefully they don't mess this up. And the good and bad of it is there's so many different directions they can go where you're not narrowed in on one player and to where you're going to be upset. But the bad of it is they could go 6 different ways and you might have no idea which way they're actually thinking until they actually make the selection.
I like that. I like that take very much. With that said, I have my hot take real quick that I just forgot. I remembered that we had. This is only from all the receiver talk, and I just want to say it. I think that we have a untapped volume in the downfield game of Khalil Shakir. I totally understand why we throw him screens and behind the line passes as an extension of the run game. It's a sure thing. If you can gain 4 to 7 yards in the NFL on early downs, you almost always do it. It's a routine for sure. When I look at some of the plays though that he made, like even 5 to 10 yards down the field, I'm thinking the Broncos playoff game and a couple other plays down the stretch. I think we might be able to get more out of Khalil Shakir down the field in an aggressive Joe Brady offense, whereas we saw maybe him neutered a little bit in the overall McDermott system. I think I could buy into that spin zone for sure. So we'll be interested to see, but time will tell. Listen, we've put in the work. You can now kick your feet up because we have paid the bills. Sponsored by Picasso's Pizza. Make sure you're following along on the platform, like Mike said. Also, make sure you're following our panel, Carson Hayek, Mike Bunt, on all socials, because they're going to have great takes all off season long as well as into the season, because it never stops here at Trainwreck Sports. Make sure to have a good rest of your night and a good night now.